Okay, so it may feel tropical in this greenhouse, and the crew's been working hard at redoing our displays, but it's winter, and there's snowstorms coming, and many of you are starting to ask questions about aeration and when they should worry about their pond. Let's dive into it a little. Okay, so it is currently the middle of January, and it is bright in this greenhouse, and it is warm in this greenhouse, but at the same time, our ponds outside don't look like this. And I'm a big advocate of using deep water aerators in a pond. Our customers are starting to ask when they need to be worried. When is the system not working? And so in my experience, there's two popular ways to overwinter your ponds. One is the use of a de-icer or a heater. And many will do it in conjunction with a small aerator. And so the two of them together work very well. The de-icer is not intended to melt your entire pond free of ice, nor is it intended to raise the water temperature in the pond. It is actually healthier for the system for the fish to go dormant and let the parasites, bacteria, everything in the system just go to sleep for the winter. It's when we actually hit the 50s and 55s all winter long that's when I start to worry. So this cold weather, I don't worry about the fish as much. They prefer it this way. Now, granted, when to worry about your aerator. If you have a de-icer and an aerator, as long as they're running, you should be able to walk up and see, depending on the style heater you're using. Some are kind of donut shaped, and they're open in the water center, and you can see the water. You're only typically going to see the water in the center of that donut shape. It's just keeping a small opening to let those toxic gases out. Now, on the flip side, the small aerator is actually adding the oxygen and kind of increasing the exchange of air and letting the toxic gases out. Now, those, if one fails, you still have the other one to fall back on. And so that's a little sense of security having two devices going. Now, when we get heavy snows, like we're predicted to get a big nor'easter coming through this weekend, that's when I worry. The heater and the aerator will still run. But if that aerator is smothered under 2 feet of snow, it may not be getting as much air to the unit itself, and they can overheat and sometimes burn out. At the same time, they just may not be exchanging as much oxygen. Now, the small energy efficient heaters also, if they get caked up with snow on top, they're just not like the old school heaters. Old school heaters were the equivalent of running a hairdryer 24/7 all winter long. So they would burn right through the ice. We can take those heaters and they burn about 1400 watts. You can actually place them on ice and they'll melt the hole right through the ice. Handy if you lose power and everything freezes up on you. But in this particular case, it's not necessary. When these storms come through, just take a look at your aerator. Take a look at it. Uncover the aerator. Make sure that it's free to get air into the aerator and do its job. The heater itself, maybe take a shovel and scrape it off the top. If you got 24 inches of snow on top of it, give it a helping hand. It's energy efficient. It's going to take a while for that to degrade and melt free. So putting those and taking a shovel to it works great. Now, if you're using our aerators, we like the Aquascape Pond Air 60s. If you're using any of the deep water aerators, the ones that are just cranking a ton of air, they're usually maintaining a good 12, 18-inch opening, sometimes bigger on their own in the wintertime. When we get deep cold like this, and especially when there's a lot of snow happening, again, I don't worry about the deep water aerators. We will uncover the snow that's on top of those air compressors and make sure that you have good exchange and good airflow after the storms. This is not something you need to be getting out there in the middle of a storm to take care of. It's not something that's an emergency. So don't worry about your aerators. As long as they're running, you can hear the bubbles gurgling underneath the ice. You can hear the aerator running, and you've uncovered it to make sure it has plenty of air circulation. Don't sweat it. Don't get out there in the middle of the storm and start messing around with things. But one thing I do recommend when it comes to snow, and I don't care what kind of aerator you're using, you might want to uncover some of the snow on top of your ponds. When you're using aerators or openings, the ice starts forming on your pond, and many times right now it's very strong. But you never know when that ice is getting thin. And it can be quite dangerous depending on if there's children in an area, when you have ice on a pond and nobody can see it because it's covered over with snow. So it is good habit to try to scrape off some of the snow. I don't advise you to go walking on top of your pond and getting out in the middle. But I do just maybe define some boundaries. scrape some snow off the top of your pond, especially in the vicinity of your aerators and from safe distance on the side of the pond on solid ground. Really just letting everybody and your pets know that the pond is still there. I know routinely my dogs would get out there, and luckily my dogs are labs, and but I have had them break through the ice in times when, and it's not usually from the aerator, it's when the ice is subsiding. It's when we've just hit these thaw spells and the ice, and they're used to getting out there. And I discourage my pets and my children from getting on the ice at all times, because right now it may be rock solid, but when that ice starts thinning out, they're not going to know to test and find out when it's thin. So just word of advice on my end of things. As far as the aerators go, just keep them running. Keep the ice off the openings. Don't panic. Keep in mind that nothing is an emergency in the middle of the storms. Nothing kills fish very fast when it's dormant and cold like this. So let the storm pass, then get out there as you're cleaning up your yard. Take a look at your pond. Make sure it's all set and done. And if there's problems, just let us know. We can walk you through what to do. But for the most part, my experience is these things handle it just fine. Get the snow off, let them run, let them do their things, and just deal with a few headaches. Pretty soon, we'll be back to the landscapes looking like this, and we could be talking about how to fix your pond up for the spring and not how to deal with the ice. Take care.